There are moments that begin so simply that it's impossible to imagine what will follow. That night, one door opened, and I didn't know it would be impossible to close. My name is Catherine, but everyone calls me Kate. My life has always been quiet and predictable here in Springfield, a city where beauty intertwines with cold like the fall wind. I have been married to Andrew for over 15 years. The stability of our relationship has become a monotonous routine over time. He travels a lot for work, and lately I feel like he's no longer around than he is here. Evenings turned into long, silent stretches of time that seemed to stretch on forever. It was a normal Friday night, one of those evenings that promises nothing but silence and the TV on. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was my sister, Isabel, with a short, almost innocuous message. "I'm coming to see you on Saturday. I'm bringing Uncle Victor. We'll have fun." I'm not particularly close to Isabel. She's always been the rebel in our family, spontaneous, free-spirited, and, shall we say, a little selfish. Victor, on the other hand, our distant uncle, is a rather unusual figure. In his 50s, he retains a charm that baffles, a man who knows how to draw attention to himself without much effort. Despite this, we have never had a close relationship. His presence at family gatherings was always mysterious, leaving a trace of curiosity in the air. On Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, it took me a second to realize what I saw. Isabel was as dazzling as ever: the black dress, the trim figure, the loose hair, and the provocative beauty she displayed with natural ease. And Victor? He looked like a man out of time: sloppy jacket, well-groomed gray hair, and more charm than I cared to admit. "Kate, you haven't changed at all," he said with a wide smile, holding out a bottle of wine to me. His low voice echoed around the room, and for a moment I felt my face redden. "What an exaggeration, Uncle. Please come in." When he entered, it was as if the air around him had gotten heavier, and his presence was hard to ignore. The evening began easily. Isabel, Victor, and I laughed, recalling stories while the wine gently warmed us. Andrew was on another of his trips, and his absence seemed to give invisible permission for this strange new mood of the evening. But soon I noticed something unusual. Isabel was behaving differently. She was closer to me, warmer. The one who had never been particularly gentle was now often touching my arm and smiling, as if hiding something behind her gaze. Victor, for his part, was watching everything that was going on. His eyes, despite their softness, had a disturbing magnetism. The way he watched us, as if reading the unspoken words, added a tension I couldn't quite grasp. In an almost imperceptible moment, as Isabel went to get another bottle of wine, Victor crouched next to me. "Everything okay, Kate?" he asked in an overly quiet voice, as if he wanted to hug me at that moment. My heart beat faster. There was nothing strange about his question, but his proximity gave me goosebumps. "Just a little tired, Uncle," I replied with a smile, trying to remain calm. But there was something else about this night, something forbidden and unspoken, elusive but palpable. It seemed to hang in the air between us, quiet and unpredictable. The silence seemed alive, as if it carried words neither of us dared to utter. Sometimes one look can say more than 1,000 words, and that night that look changed everything. After a few glasses of wine, the atmosphere in the house began to change. I couldn't understand what was bothering me, but something was wrong. Isabel found it all amusing, and Victor just watched. I went to the kitchen to cool down and gather my thoughts. Pouring myself a glass of water, I took a deep breath. "What's happening to me?" I thought, trying to calm myself down. Victor's presence was too close, too tangible, and every step he took seemed calculated to hit some invisible boundary. "It's just hot," I replied as he stepped into the kitchen, standing too close. He set his glass on the table next to mine, and said, "Kate, you've always been so calm and reserved, but you know, this calmness." His voice was quiet and confident. I raised my eyes to meet his gaze, not knowing what to say. He was looking straight into my soul, as if he saw something I was afraid to admit. "What are you?" I tried to smile, but my confidence shook. Victor didn't answer, he just stared. The silence lingered, and it seemed like he was waiting for a sign. My mind darted around, trying to decipher the depth of his gaze, but it left me even more troubled than before. At that moment, Isabel returned. "There you are," she exclaimed, entering the kitchen with a new bottle of wine. "You've been hiding from me." She put a hand on my shoulder, and her touch elicited an uncomfortable reaction. "We were just chatting," Victor replied with the same smile that made me wince. "Well, let's continue in the living room," Isabel said casually. We returned to the lounge, and I tried to focus on the conversation, but my gaze kept meeting Victor's intense eyes. His attention was confusing me, his every gesture seemed wrong. Isabel, as if playing her own game, moved closer to him, resting her head casually on his shoulder. There was a lightness in her movements that masked an underlying tension, as if she was daring me to react. "Remember when we went to Grandma's cottage?" Isabel asked suddenly, looking at me with an enigmatic smile. There was some subtext in her words. "We've always been close, you and I," she continued, her gaze suddenly studying me, waiting for something. Victor was silent, but his eyes caught mine again, sending a chill down my spine. "What's going on here?" I thought, looking at Isabel and Victor. Sometimes the most dangerous games start with innocent moves, but this one I'll never forget. Every word seemed weighty, every look heightened the tension that seemed almost unbearable. The night went on, filled with tension. Victor and Isabel acted as if they were playing out a scenario known only to them. I felt like a third wheel, even in my own home. Isabel's playful smiles and Victor's intense gaze kept me on my toes. When I went to the kitchen for another bottle of wine, Victor followed me. "Let me help you," he offered, his voice soft and warm. Our fingers made contact and a shock ran through my body. "You're on edge," he said quietly. "Victor, what are you doing?" I muttered, unable to look away. "I'm not doing anything, Kate." "But you are," he replied, his voice soothing but dangerous. I stepped back, clutching the bottle tightly. "You're crazy," I whispered. He smiled. There was no humor in his eyes, only certainty. "I'm leaving," I said sharply, walking past him into the living room. Isabel noticed my expression and smiled understandingly. "Tired?" she asked innocently. "Yeah," I lied. "Just a little tired." "Don't leave yet," she said, pouring me more wine. I sat down on the edge of the couch, feeling the ground go from under my feet. Victor's gaze followed me, and Isabel's words seemed endowed with hidden meaning. The wine only added to the haze, making the atmosphere more surreal with each passing moment. When I finally disappeared into my bedroom, I leaned against the door, my heart pounding frantically. I couldn't explain why their presence was affecting me so much. Sleep wouldn't come to me that night. Images of Victor's gaze and Isabel's innuendo kept running through my mind. By morning, I decided to end it. But when I walked into the kitchen, Isabel greeted me with a smile that felt victorious. "Good morning," she said. Victor went for a walk. He said he liked the sunrise. I avoided her gaze, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Didn't sleep well?" she asked, feigning concern. "No, it was hard to sleep," I replied. "Maybe it's because of Victor," she said, her voice soft. My anger flared up. "Stop it, Isabel. You're playing a dangerous game." She raised her eyebrows. "Are you sure you don't want to be in it?" Her question lingered in the air, heavy with innuendo. Victor's return broke the tension. He looked calm, as if the previous night hadn't affected him. "We're leaving this afternoon," Isabel announced, and her words sounded both like a promise and a threat. I was relieved that they would be gone, but I knew their presence had taken its toll on me. Later, when Victor found me alone on the terrace, he stepped closer. "Kate," he whispered, "why are you running away from yourself?" I squeezed past him, unable to bear his closeness. Isabel's victorious smile froze inside. Every interaction felt like a piece in a confusing game I hadn't agreed to play. By the next morning, I realized I had to take back control. I blocked Isabel's number and threw away the wine. Time would pass, and I would learn to live with the secret, but I promised myself one thing: I wouldn't let them ruin my life again.